Hello, my name is JD Shadow. This is a special report, your news and views program about geek gaming culture on the internet. Come up in the show today, I'm going to probably get in trouble with this, am I? But we're going to be talking all about the latest fallout from PewDiePie dropping the N-bomb on a recent live stream and the fallout from it, including the subsequent apology and the thing that the Firewatch Dev has tried to do on the back of it, and what some people have said from it, including one particular so-called independent news outlet that had used this in order to bring up something else, like the YouTube adpocalypse. We're going to talk about those things because my name is JD Shadow and the special report will start right now. So, in case you have crawled out from under a rock that you were in within the past couple of days, you probably have not heard about PewDiePie's recent live stream in which he was playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG. In this, he was getting grieved by a couple of people, and we all know what grieving means in the MMO world, but in this sense, he about had enough, and he was being pushed and pushed and pushed up until he said something particularly egregious, to say the very least. Now, I'm going to play the entire video for you, and I'm going to cut out the part in which he actually says the words in the foul language that proceeded and preceded it. However, around the time that you see the Twitch alert pop up is when he says the word in question. Let's go to the clip in question.
What? What's happening?
What the hell was that? The potato was insane. I was holding it so straight.
What the Jeez, oh my god, what the Sorry, but what the What a fucking ass. I don't mean that in a bad way. Jesus. Why would he do that? Legit, why would he do that?
Did you kill the other one?
Yeah. Sake.
I hate you so much.
I tried to shoot. I shot him 3 times. He went out of his way.
Well, I put in the entire context of that so you can see exactly what was going on there. As you no doubt could probably tell, that created a massive firestorm on Twitter, with him getting trending on Twitter within moments, with people very much up in arms about what he said and pretty much how he said it. This comes in the back of the Wall Street Journal posting that whole story, which we talked about time and time again, about the Nazi symbolism that he did on some of his videos, and no doubt he was just trying to troll those people who were saying that he was being a full-on Nazi and not realizing that the media has done this for years and they really know how to troll the trolls, pretty much, without anybody suspecting that there is an ulterior motive for that. They are masters at it. You probably cannot possibly beat them at that sort of game, and they will try to destroy you if that is the case, if that is their ulterior motive, which with the Wall Street Journal, I think that was their ulterior motive, in order to take down somebody who they were jealous of, that they were getting more views than the Wall Street Journal was. But we will no doubt get to that point when we get to the opinions part of this whole thing, although I already said my opinion about that. The backlash with this is surprisingly mixed, though. Some people were saying that obviously this was a horrible move that he made, and no doubt I do not condone the usage of the word in any sort of imagination. I no doubt think that that would be a default thing that many people have had, and you would be pretty stupid to think otherwise, to say, oh, you're not being condemning enough. How condemning do you want us to be? We'll no doubt get into that subject as well, but it also sparked a really particular couple of responses. Let's first get to the main fallout of this, and this has to do with a particular developer, Sean Vanaman, who is the head of Campo Santo Games, and he had created games such as Firewatch, and he came out on Twitter and said this, quote, "We are following a DMCA takedown of PewDiePie Firewatch content and indie futures Campo Santo Games. There is a bit of leeway that you have to have with the internet when you wake up every day and make video games. There's also a breaking point. I'm sick of this child getting more and more chances to make money off of what we make. He's worse than a closet racist. He is a propagator of despicable garbage that does real damage to the culture around this industry. I'd urge other developers and will be reaching out to folks much larger than us to cut him off from the content that has made him a millionaire. Furthermore, we're complicit. I'm sure we've made money off of the 5.7 million views that video has, and that's something for us to think about. Lastly, I love streamers. I watch them daily, and we sent out over 3,000 keys to professional and amateur streamers of Firewatch." Now, keep in mind the wording of this, because there's no doubt something that I want to say in regards to how he worded that whole thing, because it seems as though he used that as a bit of an out for another situation that we will no doubt get to here in just a moment. And you can no doubt tell that this sparked outrage across the interwebs of people who simply wanted his head, who simply thought that this was the last straw. This was something that proved that he was a full-on racist, even though I have watched his videos a lot before and after these whole controversies began. And to be quite honest, though I never met the guy, though I never claimed to actually know the guy in person or anything like that, from his videos, he seems like he's a really cool guy. He seems like he's somebody who is a stand-up kind of guy who will own up to any mistakes that he's made, and no doubt he's made quite a few. No doubt we've all made quite a few. I've made quite a few. A lot of us have made quite a few. And maybe not as big as this, but sometimes maybe even bigger than this. And we just have to make sure that we understand that we are all human in that sort of sense. But this had another response to it. This had another response that has brought upon something else that this might end up aggravating even further, which is the YouTube adpocalypse. If you do not remember, some people have blamed the Wall Street Journal PewDiePie situation as the catalyst for what is called the YouTube adpocalypse, which now YouTube is being scared of the quote-unquote advertiser friendliness of some of the YouTube videos and has created an algorithm in order to determine whether or not some videos are deemed advertiser friendly and demonetizing those which the system claims are not. Now, keep in mind that this is YouTube and YouTube alone that has initiated this particular system. This was not in any sort of request by any advertisers in particular. This is them getting paranoid about some of the things that they were seeing on YouTube lately. And this may or may not have been a direct result of the PewDiePie situation, but rather some indications that ads were being placed on extremist videos, which are few and far between when you take into account the millions upon millions of other videos that deal with news and opinions and all that sort of thing are placed upon YouTube on a daily basis. One of those particular news outlets that I think we need to discuss is the Young Turks. Now, according to them, they are an independent news outlet that is funded directly by the people who watch it. It is a publicly funded news outlet. However, I want to draw your attention to something that TubeFilter had recently reported on, saying the Young Turks raises $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg's Winder Co., Greycroft 3L Capital, and they have yet to disclose of that particular piece of information in any of their newscasts, and they had yet to discuss the apocalypse because it never affected them in the slightest. YouTube had yet to even demonetize any one of their videos, and so they had no way of worrying about it. They had no reason to worry about it, but they decided that they wanted to bring it up now in their coverage of the PewDiePie N-word situation, when Anna Kasparian, who has basically become the Nancy Grace of the left, she has basically become somebody who gets worked up over just about everything, has little to no sense of humor anymore, and has just went off the deep end before she even thinks about what it is she's actually complaining about. She made it a point in order to say on the 9/11 edition of the Young Turks, take that into consideration as well what date it was. She said this that I'm going to just play a clip of, and this is going to just be cut down for time. I don't mean to take anything out of context, but this is exactly what she said.
This emergence of people whining and crying because YouTube demonetized some of their videos or some portion of their videos. And look, the reason why that happens is because advertisers all of a sudden realized that there are a bunch of assholes on YouTube that say a bunch of really terrible racist things. Companies decide what they do with their money. Are they gonna advertise on content that they find objectionable? No. And so what happened is all of a sudden advertisers are afraid of everything on YouTube, right? And so everyone got demonetized, okay? Everyone's businesses got affected, right? So if you're gonna run around saying the N-word and use Nazi imagery, yeah, some of your videos are gonna get demonetized, homeboy. If you're gonna go to Tucker Carlson and whine and cry and bitch because you lost some money on YouTube for putting out all sorts of racist no, of course that's gonna happen. That's how it works. That's how it would work in television. That's how it works in radio. That's how it works online. If you're gonna say objectionable things that companies are uncomfortable with, they're not gonna advertise on your videos.
Now I'm going to get into my thoughts about what the Young Turk said in just a second, because this is getting up upon 10 minutes before I even get into what my thoughts are on the subject. But PewDiePie actually posted a more structured response and apology to the whole thing, and that one I'm not going to play for you in the entirety because I actually do want you to go to the link down below, and I will post you all the links down below of the videos I used in the description below this video so you can see them in their full context. But basically, he has said everything that we have said, and that he said something in the heat of the moment, and that he actually regrets creating a culture that he believes he did create, in which people do react in that sort of way. Not necessarily saying the N-bomb, but some things like that in which he believes that he had created, and that he needed to stop making mistakes like that, and that he understands the scope in which that he is in, and the scope in which the mistake that he made was going to be seen through. And of course, I have seen a few videos, one in particular that I did respond to, saying that they did not accept his apology, that they thought that he was forced into it, and so on and so forth. Of course, I believe that particular person was only trying to prolong the situation in order to give her even more exposure, because of course we know sensationalism sometimes equals viewership and money. Okay, let's get the easy stuff out of the way. Let's get all this other stuff away, then we'll talk about the DMCA part of this, because I think that is going to be the meat of this whole thing, is the DMCA situation. First things first, I do not condone the usage of the word. I do not condone it at all. And anybody who thinks I would is not knowing of me enough. Now, you may say, oh, by doing this, you're defending him, so you condone it. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Am I going to defend his usage of it? No. Am I going to say that he made a mistake? Yes. Am I going to condemn him forever for it? No, because first of all, that flies right into the face of me saying that we need to have more forgiveness on these types of issues. Of course, if somebody is proud of saying N-bomb, 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 F this, F that, and doing like what they did in Charlottesville, then of course that's going to be a lot more condemnable than this, because quite frankly, those types of things, those types of issues, when somebody makes a mistake and they say, hey, I fess up for it, fess up for it, fess up for it, how much more do they have to fess up for it for you guys take it into consideration? I feel as though at a moment people are not allowed to apologize, that they have to be proud of it. If they do make a mistake, yes, they do have to fess up to it, yes, they do have to own up for it, but they also need a chance to apologize, need a chance to breathe long enough for them to apologize, and they have to be taken at face value. They have to be looked at face value. They have to be able to be allowed to apologize. If you're going to not accept apology regardless of the sincerity of said apology, then what does that make us? What does that make you? What does that make me? That makes us not willing to move on with our lives, for one thing, and second of all, it doesn't teach us anything. It doesn't let us learn anything. And thirdly, and I think this is going to be the most telling of all, it shows us that we are willing to continue to hold grudges. We are continuing to use that to further our own well-being and our own status. is that we're going to virtue single. We're going to do all this other stuff in order to make sure that our own bottom line is going to be positively affected, because we know that if we continue to talk and talk about it, and yes, I am guilty of this as well, we sort of like drama from time to time. We sort of want to see this happen because we sort of want to see, especially famous people, be taken down a peg. He is one of the highest paid people on YouTube, and some people are very jealous of it, so they want to see him taken down a peg, and this is possibly a fall from grace. And though we think we should be proud of it, he's one of the people that created the foundation, the stage for people like Total Biscuit, people like Jesse Cox, people like myself, people like Dodger and whatnot. That has created that. Now, of course, we're not going to do the same thing he has. Of course, everybody's got their own style, and everybody is going to have their own morality of the whole thing. But the bottom line is that he created the atmosphere in order for us to be able to do our own thing. He made it legitimate. Now, of course, the N-bomb and that whole sort of well-being should not be legitimized in any sort of way, but the whole thing is that he has fessed up to it. He has said that he regrets making that kind of culture, and we should commend him for doing that much. If we're saying that, hey, he's not the most perfect person in the world, he's going to make mistakes, and he apologized for it, and he left it at that. That is one of the other things, is that usually he'll make some quirky remark at the end of it. Usually he will say something that says, oh, J.K. Rowling is still this and that, which is well and good, and he should respond to stuff like that, but he should leave it out of the apology video and put it in a separate video. That's the one thing that's bad. You should leave it at the apology and not bring that whole thing, which leads to more fire, which puts more gas onto the flames. This, he left it at that, which I commend him for. Now, whether or not people are going to accept that, that is up to us to do so. And right now, we have a big problem of doing that. We have a huge problem at saying, hey, you know what? You apologize, don't do it again. And if someone says, hey, he's done it before, then provide proof that he has done it before. But don't just sit there and say, hey, he's done it before, and not provide proof that he has. And not lead to the place where he has done it before. And for those people who are thinking, well, he has to be racist, I implore you to do what I did. Because when I heard about this and I was preparing to do the special report, I'm pretty sure that people are going to be mad at me for even talking about this, for even touching the subject, let alone saying the things I'm saying. There is a book which has the title of the word that he used by Randall Kennedy. It was published, I think, in 2002. And after this, what I did was I actually went and looked for this book, and I downloaded the Audible version of the book, and let me tell you, it is an eye-opener. You should definitely read it. It is one word, it is the word that he used, the N-word, and saying how nuclear this one racial epithet is in comparison to any other racial epithet that is in the English language, where it comes from, why he thinks it got the status that it did, and he explores a whole bunch of different angles of the whole thing, and it is really a good read. You should go check it out. I will definitely recommend that read. And if we're going to condemn that, we need to condemn some other aspects of where that word is used. Not only in rap albums, I think that has been drowned out to God knows how many times that has been brought up, but also in several different comedy skits with Richard Pryor, who had used that in a very intelligent sort of way. South Park had used it in an episode where we were talking about the Michael Richards situation that he got himself into. Of course, the Jeffersons even used it back in the 70s. I don't think anybody remembers this, and I don't remember it because it happened before I was born even. The Jeffersons, George Jefferson, the character, actually came out and used the word. That was on CBS. That was on network television. And of course, the Fox show Boston Public actually explored the usage of the word. It was a terrific show. I wish Boston Public didn't get canceled, and I think it got canceled because Fox did something stupid with it. Put it on Friday nights where it should have been at a night where more people can actually watch it, because it was a terrific show and it tackled a whole bunch of difficult topics, and this is a difficult topic. I'm sorry to say, but this is a difficult topic, a much more difficult topic than many people might think it is. I think we need to discuss why it's got so much power, why this one word has so much emphasis on it, why this word has the nuclear basis that it does. And that's why I implore you to read Randall Kennedy's book. I implore you all to read that because it is a terrific exploration into why the word is what it is and what people might think about it and why so many people will use it without any racial congregation behind it. And no, I'm not condoning the usage of the word by bringing this up, but it is something that is fascinating and it is a learning experience. I think we all need to have this learning experience. Let me bring up the Young Turks for just a second before we go any further. First of all, in Experian, calm the hell down, okay? Before you go into the tangent, which you usually do, calm the hell down. Now, the reason the apocalypse happened, as I said, is because somebody saw, and by somebody I mean the Wall Street Journal, of course they did, because they had an ulterior motive behind them even bringing any of this up, saying that they saw these ads being on a video that had a song that was entitled Alabama N-Word. It had nothing to do with PewDiePie. Absolutely nothing to do with him. So these articles that are trying to blame him for it are absolutely wrong. Plus, the reason why you were not worried about the apocalypse and why you are so unaffected and why you're saying this in the first place is because YouTube is not touching you. They are touching people like David Pockman, who used to be a part of the TYT network, like Dave Rubin, who is part of the TYT network, like myself, who just talked about racism. And Shank Yuger was right, is that it affects everybody. But you're getting wrong the reason why it exists in the first place. It has nothing to do with PewDiePie. Because if it did, then they would have done it when PewDiePie made that video in the first place. When they first brought out that out of context video, which they meant to take out of context because they knew exactly what they were doing. Don't kid yourself in thinking that the Wall Street Journal did anything different or had any intentions of doing anything different. They knew what they were doing, they knew what they were after, and people bought it. And your definition of what constitutes to a bigoted comment is left in question as well. That is unfortunately something that we have to take into consideration anymore. That what do you consider that? What constitutes to that? What is your definition of that? Because some people's definition is very vague, meaning anybody who criticizes my content, even if they don't have any racist bone in their body and they don't have any racist bone in the terms or the tone that they are even saying about my thing, that they will use that as an out. They will use that as a weapon. They will use that kind of stuff as a weapon. As Emma Watson said one time when she brought up feminism, that they do use that as a weapon. They use that as a club to beat up anybody who does something that they don't approve of. They will go after their own when they have no reason to. So I believe that before we even get into that point, we have to explore not only your interpretation of what constitutes to a comment like that, but also, and I'm not saying that the N-word is not a racist comment, I'm not saying that, but if you're going to bring that sort of thing up, you also have to bring up your definition of it, because you got to make that clear. What is your definition? Be concrete, be concise, be clear about what your definition is, and stick to that. And also, please disclose the real reason why you're not worried and you are so against people complaining that their videos are being demonetized, because they are bringing something up that you are not comfortable with, because you know you're not getting touched, and you know the reason why you're not getting touched, because YouTube likes you. YouTube does not want to touch you, and plus, what YouTube is doing is taking out your competition and leaving you alone. You're viewing the apocalypse as a way for them to take out your competition without you even having to do any sort of work whatsoever. And disclose these funds that you got through this one guy. Please disclose that, because I think that is very telling. Now let's get to the meat of the whole thing. I know this was going to be a long special report because I knew there was a lot we needed to get off our chest. So let's get to the main issue. And yes, I want to just go ahead and say that this DMCA is a terrible situation. This is the meat of the whole thing. This is the one thing that is going to really damage a lot of things. Now, first things first, there have been people who have said that the DMCA is a adequate DMCA. It is valid. They have every right to do this. They have every right to say, you know what, we're going to take down their video. We have every right to do it. And if you want to take us to court, you can take us to court. You're going to fail. However, that having been said, I want to bring this sort of discussion into the whole front. The DMCA right now is very unclear, which lets people use loopholes in order to both argue for and against the DMCA being used in this sense. The YouTube algorithms are really borked in all sense, in both what constitutes to ad-friendly revenue and, of course, copyright infringement. And we've known this for quite a while, and YouTube will do absolutely diddly squat about that. But I also want to get into this discussion. If the DMCA is so out of date, if the DMCA system, which is so out of date, as I do agree that it is, why aren't we doing anything about it? This would be the perfect time if the Firewatch devs, which by the way issued a blanket permission to use their footage, to use their game into your videos without any consequence. If the DMCA system as it pertains right now is with such gray area that this is allowable and at the same time disallowable, then why aren't we campaigning for Congress to change these laws in order to get these laws changed somehow? I mean, if this is such a sticking point, if this is something that is going to affect all of us, then why aren't we saying anything about it? Why aren't we trying to do something about it? Because here's the thing, this is going to be a slippery slope. If the Firewatch devs are able to do this to PewDiePie for any reason, I don't care what the reason is, it could be, okay, we just don't like the guy anymore. Because quite frankly, I think this was just an excuse, an out for him to say, hey, we don't want PewDiePie covering our game. We don't want him doing it. And they were just looking for an out, like Mega Studios, which is looking for an out because PewDiePie was costing them too much money. And so that is my reason as to why they decided to use the whole situation with him being a quote-unquote Nazi or using Nazi imagery to get out of that contract, because to be quite honest, I think they were just costing him too much money, and you saw what happened to him after that. They had to drop a whole bunch of other people because they were costing him too much money, myself included. But if this is going to happen to PewDiePie in any sort of context, then what is stopping them from doing that to other people? What is stopping them from saying, hey, we don't like this guy, we don't like that guy, we don't like this person or that woman or that human being, so we're going to revoke their privileges but let other people have the permission? Then what does that create? That creates a system where you can just say, hey, if you reviewed our game in a positive light, then you have the permission to use our game footage for Let's Plays. If you are going to talk about a game positively, you're going to say, hey, I had fun playing the game, then you have the permission to talk about our game, in order to use footage from our game. This is going to basically create a situation like what happened with Day One's Gary's Incident, like Guys of the Wolf, like those other games that Total Biscuit had problems with when he was talking about permission to use footage from their game. And then suddenly, after he had negative things to say about the games, they revoked everything. And he had a bit of a different interpretation law than he does now. Let's keep that in mind. This is going to create a load of problems if we allow the Firewatch devs to use this one excuse here. Regardless of what you think about what PewDiePie did, the very nature of the Firewatch devs doing this in order to go through with it, which they have gone through with it, let's be frank about it, they are not lying, they have done a DMCA takedown of his videos, which by the way, he can counter notification, he can do that, and that can take him to an actual court of law. And that's where things will really become problematic, because that can go to the Supreme Court. That can go to there. And that can actually be a grounds in order for laws to be changed if we have any past rulings of the Supreme Court to go on, that they have been known to change laws in the past. The judiciary system has been known to make every other branch in Congress, in the Washington, to change their laws because some laws are unconstitutional or unfair to normal citizens. That's called checks and balances. That's why that sort of thing exists. That's why we have the things we do now. because there are 3 branches of government which check and balance themselves. That's why that sort of system exists. That's why we have 3 branches of government. So we don't have a sort of situation where we have some sort of dictatorship or something like that, to where the judiciary branch can not only interpret laws, but interpret whether or not they are unconstitutional. That is why that exists. That's the very nature of why they are there. That's why they have their jobs. That's why they are appointed to their jobs, so they can do stuff like that. And no, I am not going to pretend I know every single little aspect of how this system works. I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to know every single little in and out that has to do with how the law works or what have you. But what I'm saying is that this is a dangerous situation which we should not let happen just because we didn't like what PewDiePie said. Even if you disagree with every other thing that I just said, this issue with the Firewatch Dev doing what he's doing is going to create a system in which we're not going to recover from for a very long time. And it's no fault of PewDiePie. It is Firewatch Dev who is choosing to go this route. He could go a different route. He could go a very different route. But the language that he used strikes at me as him saying, hey, we're just using this as an out because we don't want this guy covering our game. Now, did he like the game? Because the video is now taken down, we have no way to determine whether or not he talked negatively about the game, and he didn't have a way to fully get away with taking down a negative opinion about the game, which, by the way, is 1 year old, without getting full-on backlash, so he used this as an excuse. Is it an excuse? I would not know, because I don't know what PewDiePie said. I didn't even know PewDiePie had a video on Firewatch, and he knows that this is going to be low-hanging fruit. A lot of people are going to agree with his sentiment about what PewDiePie said, but that doesn't mean that he has to take down the video. That means that he has to go and talk with PewDiePie about what exactly occurred, and to, at the very least, give him a chance to redeem himself. At least give him the opportunity, and I would implore everybody to give him that opportunity. I know that he has some questionable things that he has done in the past, but this is the one thing that I believe he knew that he screwed up right away, and then he tried to immediately fix the issue, which I can commend him on. I can say that he did the right thing here and immediately at least attempt to apologize for it. Now, whether or not people buy is all up in the air, and for the Firewatch devs to do this is going to create a slippery slope. So let me just go into the TLDR of this, because this is a long special report. I apologize for how long this is, and again, this is a very tricky situation on many facets, on several different angles. I implore everyone who had been offended by this, in order to at the very least give him a chance to redeem himself. I know maybe this is not the first mistake he's ever made, and of course we're all going to make mistakes in our lives. We're all only human. This is something that is going to affect us as human beings, but he is in a sort of different position as he is a well-known figure. He's a well-known public figure, so of course he has a bit of a different set of rules that he has to go by, but we are all human. We are all going to make mistakes. The one thing we can do is make sure that we learn from those mistakes, and hopefully he does learn from those mistakes. I implore everybody to go read that Randall Kennedy book, because I think that will be very enlightening and will, at the very least, tell you of a different angles of this whole situation. Young Crooks needs to calm down and disclose a lot of things and learn what the apocalypse is, and don't treat it as a way in order to take down your competition, as I believe they are doing, because they have not been touched. And to the Firewatch devs, maybe you should resend those DMCAs, because they're not going to look good on you, and it's going to come to a point where we are going to win against you. And I implore somebody, anybody, to get on it about tackling this issue about the DMCAs and Let's Plays, because this is going to keep happening, and they're going to do something unethical, meaning the Firewatch devs. They're going to do something unethical if they are allowed to keep going with this, because it's going to be such a slippery slope. And that is going to do it for the special report, probably the longest I've have done, and probably the most touchiest thing I have probably have done, the most touchiest subject I've tackled yet on the special report. Thanks again for watching and not being completely angry that I even tackled this, much less said what I have said. If you do like what I said, please give a thumbs up. If you are new here, hit the subscribe button for more geek gaming culture. Also check me out on Twitch at JD_Shadow. I do stream there a lot now as well. Also, please leave a comment down below about what you thought about the subjects we tackled today. Hopefully you are civil about what you think about everything that I said, even if you do not agree with everything I said. And I don't expect everybody to agree with every single thing I've said. I would not expect everybody to agree with everything I said, because we are human and because we should treat each other with respect even if we don't agree with everything. My name is JD Shadow, and big sigh of relief, that just happened.